start with, this is the college prep English class at Excellence in Education. And let's share the screen. And what is the date today? February 18th. Okay, we've got a number of things to look at today. Big one is the Romeo and Juliet test. I hate taking tests in class time. It just is such a poor waste of time. I feel rather like saying, okay, everybody know these?
Okay.
Well, let's go through them just so that we know that everybody knows. Go ahead and take out your pieces of paper. At least that way we'll have a record of what's going on. And how many of you, well, I'm assuming you all got a chance to look at least one version, probably a couple versions.
Zeffirelli.
Yeah.
You got the Zeffirelli one?
And
Legitimate
it's
movie site.
no. You said you couldn't find it online, or
I couldn't find it for free online.
I found it for free. I just searched and then I went to the YouTube page. Then they said, "Oh, this video has been taken down. Watch it here," and it works. So I saw it.
Oh, okay.
And the nudity is just not really nudity.
What did he?
The nudity in it, it's not like the nudity you.
There was so little, it was just enough to irritate really sensitive people.
Yeah.
The kind of person who stands on a chair to look out the window and see what the neighbor's doing. Okay. And they did cut out some of the bawdy bits. Not because they were bawdy, but because a lot of the unnecessary dialogue was reduced, which may have made it a better movie. That was certainly one of the decisions that they were making at the time. Okay, let's take a look at our agenda. Is this our agenda?
Yes.
I guess so. Okay. Okay, the poetic analysis retest. I stuck a couple of other little things in here. Just, you've had a chance to go through some before, looking at existing lines of poetry and analyzing them. Let's just make sure that you remember those we've done and you can apply that to a few that you haven't. First one here, you can probably guess from its structure whom it belongs to. Ever drifting down the stream, lingering in the golden gleam, life, what is it but a dream?
Shakespeare? Is it?
No, it's not Shakespeare. I'll give you a hint. Terses, rhyming lines, which is fairly common for author. No, okay. It's Lewis Carroll. Yeah.
Iambic.
Yes, I mean,
Yeah.
It's not iambic.
It's not.
No.
Would it be the reverse? So
Yes. What is the opposite of iambic?
Trochaic.
Trochaic, yes. Because think about it. Ever is very clearly a trochaic word.
Yes.
Isn't it?
yeah.
It's not ever, right? So ever drifting down the stream, lingering in the golden gleam, life, what is it but a dream? So it's trochaic.
Tetrameter.
Tetrameter, excellent. This one's a little harder because you
Do we write these down, or
I'm sorry.
No, we'll just.
we don't write these down?
Yeah, go ahead. And actually,
Was it?
these are sort of review. I'm
Yeah,
just
that's what I was thinking.
the next lot, let's write down, and I actually gave those numbers so that you can write them down. This one, of course, where does it come from? Oh, you know it. You know it. My only love sprung from my only hate, too early seen, unknown, and known too late. Prodigious birth of love it is to me that I must love a loathed enemy, is the next couplet. Who would say that?
I don't know.
Juliet!
Oh,
Okay.
wait, which scene was that?
It's the party scene.
I see.
Okay. This does not bode well for the Romeo and Juliet analysis here. So it being Shakespeare, you've got a pretty good idea what it's going to be, right?
Yeah, that one's iambic pentameter.
Yeah, pentameter, right. Okay. As dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly. I left it there from last time. This is one you've seen before. As dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly. Da, 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 da. Okay, what is that foot?
Anapest.
It is an anapest. Okay, so it's anapestic. Da 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 da. 1, 2, 3.
Spectrometer.
Anapestic tetrameter. Very good. Okay. I was sure that you all would have these down.
Some of these are just confusing, that's why. It's like,
Yeah.
Well, I tried to confuse you a little bit. Did my heart look till now forswear in sight, for I ne'er sought true beauty till this night. You know what it is. What is it?
what's that? I don't think that's an anapest.
This is one of the big lines, one of the beautiful lines.
Is that
The measure done, I'll watch her place so stand, and touching hers make blessed my rude hand, is the line that precedes this.
what is that? It's
I think you've got to go back and watch this thing a few more times.
Yeah.
I just watched it.
Okay. This is also at the party.
Okay.
Right. And so this is Romeo speaking, and since it's Shakespeare, it's iambic pentameter.
Yeah.
Okay. Then with this one, happily, this is hard to find dactylic. And so this is about the only one I could think of on top of my head. This poem is one I'd like to share with you at some point. In that buckskin shirt that was glazed with dirt, I sat and I saw him sway. Notice how many feet are in this line.
Mm-hmm.
How many is it? 1,
It's
2,
pentameter, right?
3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Oh. So it's
Oh, septameter.
It's heptameter.
heptameter, yeah.
Heptameter.
Right. Or you can call it valid form, which is 4 and then 3.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. Shall we skip the rest of this and come back to it later?
Yes.
Okay.
We've got other things to cover here. I was sure that since it was in the agenda, everybody would
Yeah.
analyze it thoroughly.
All right.
Okay. Anybody know who these two are? They're supposed to be Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
Much too old. Of
Yeah,
course.
they look
Yeah.
old. Doesn't look too.
Doesn't follow
The guy
the
looks
story
like
quite
he-
Leslie
14.
Howard. This one is out there somewhere. It's one of the greats. Leslie Howard was one of the great actors of the 30s.
Mhm.
Okay, now here's the test. You want to go ahead? How can we take this test as quickly as possible, get through the whole thing in less than 5 minutes, so we can go
Less
on
than
to other
5
things?
minutes.
5 minutes.
It's a pretty strenuous
is
time limit.
You already
15
know
problems.
what
That's
you're going to say.
that's an average of 20 seconds a problem. Well, for the first 15.
This is 2 seconds of problem. Okay.
Oh, 20. I meant to. Yeah.
We may need a little more time
Okay.
to process.
Let's go through that. This is tricky stuff, and I know you don't have the answers unless you've really done a little bit of research, and I expect that you probably have done a little research, right?
Yeah. I watched it.
Okay. Okay. So we've got it down then.
Do so.
Okay. Is there anybody who doesn't know what the first one is?
Me.
You
Wait.
don't?
That's Romeo.
That's Romeo.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 2, whose ears have not yet drunk 100 words of whose tongue's utterance. What a wonderful line.
Mhm.
My ears have not yet drunk 100 words of that tongue's utterance, and yet I know the sound.
Romeo. Romeo as well.
Well, Romeo's the answer to the second who.
Oh. Then I do not know.
This is the first thing Juliet says as soon as she hears him speak. Juliet's ears have not yet drunk 100 words of that tongue's utterance. What a wonderful metaphor. My ears have not yet drunk 100 words. How old is Lady Capulet? You all know the answer to that one.
26.
Right. That one down. Who's Prince of Cats?
Tybalt.
Excellent, excellent. You all knew that, right?
Mhm.
Let's put it down. Okay. Who left no kindly drop?
Juliet. Was that from the poison scene or no?
Okay, yes. But it's she who is saying it. The person who left no kindly drop is
Oh,
Romeo.
Yeah, Romeo.
of course.
Yeah, yeah.
O churl, drunk all and left no kindly drop to help thee after. This is the line. Okay. Who is the fairy's midwife? No larger than an agate stone.
Wasn't she like?
Good afternoon. Somebody got a spare piece of paper.
Okay, that one was it like Queen Mab?
Very good.
Yeah,
Very good.
okay.
This is
That's
the Queen
what-
Mab.
Yeah, that was like the weird-
Put it down if you know who it is.
Man.
Okay. Azariah, just open up your book and start putting something in there. We're taking an official, unofficial test.
We'll have to take it again next week.
You really think you're going to need that? Well,
Or I could take it at home. I mean,
I don't know how many weeks we want to spend on Romeo and Juliet, but there's so much in the text that I'd like to look at today if we can get to it.
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead and number 1, Azariah, do you remember that one? Who sees a consequence yet hanging in the stars?
No.
What? No? Okay, leave it then. We're already just down to number 6 here. So you can go ahead and put those down. Well, so number 7 then. Okay, where has death's pale flag not advanced? No, here, this is just again a beautiful metaphor. Death's pale flag is not advanced there.
What's his name?
Okay, well, what would death's pale flag be?
Maybe love.
Well, the paleness of death.
death, of course.
Looking at the dead Juliet, but death's pale flag is not advanced there. It's as though she's not dead, and indeed
Yeah,
she
she's
isn't.
not. She's
Right.
Under the sleeping thing.
yeah. So that
Okay.
was-
So let's. What is the herald of the morn?
Oh, that one was a singing bird in the morning.
Yes. Which one?
I don't remember that.
Was it the nightingale or the lark?
it was the nightingale, wasn't it?
Lark?
It was the lark.
The lark. The
Ah.
lark is the herald of the morn. Nightingale sings during the night. So when they hear this bird singing, he says, "Oh, I better be going." And she says, "Oh, 'twas the nightingale and not the lark that pierced the fearful hollow of thine ear." In other words, don't worry about it. It's not morning yet. It's just the nightingale that's singing, not the lark. Not the lark, the herald of the morn. Okay. Who's called a princox?
That's also Tybalt.
Excellent, excellent. Princox. which is, I'm sure you looked it up, a sort of an unruly forward youth is a prig fox. Okay, and what trespasses sweetly urged? This is one of the most wonderful lines in the whole thing there. And I think we did this one before. You can't forget this one.
I don't think we've done this one. I don't think so.
And I'm pretty sure we did, but
I don't remember that one.
okay, no recollection at all. You realize, of course, that within Shakespeare, it's not the plot that's important.
Mm-hmm.
It's the language itself, and so that's why I'm playing with the language here to try to get you to recognize these things. What trespasses sweetly urged, and indeed, it's Romeo and Juliet at the party. He kisses her and says, "Thus, from my lips, by thine, my sin is purged." And her response is, "Well, have on my lips then the sin that they have took."
At the party, right? Yeah.
And so he takes that as an invitation. "Oh, trespass sweetly urged, give me my sin again." Okay. Important. Oh, they're finally leaving.
Careful.
Okay. Why swear not by the moon?
It's bad luck. I didn't know this one. Just
Well, I
thrown out
think
guess.
that's what she's thinking, right? But why? What does she say? Why swear not by the moon? Indeed, what happens is she's saying, "Dost thou love? If thou dost love, pronounce it faithfully." And he does. "By yonder blessed moon, I swear." Oh, swear not by the moon, that monthly changes in a circled orb, lest that thy love prove likewise variable. That's why you don't swear by the moon, or at least that's the argument given. Right? Whose bounty is as boundless as the sea?
Oh. It's
Did you have this list in front of you when you were
No,
watching
I
the
wasn't.
film?
No,
That's probably why.
but
Well, that might have helped.
oh wait,
Yeah.
I think that's Romeo.
Somebody want to give Dawson a piece of paper?
Sorry.
your turn, Brian.
I'm still not used to it.
Bring us
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, isn't Romeo's bounty as boundless?
Are
as
we
the
going to
sea?
cover the papers?
Yes, absolutely. I want to
Okay.
get to them. That's why I want to get through this so quickly.
Okay.
Okay, whose bounty is as boundless as the sea? Who says that?
Romeo, right?
It is in fact Juliet.
Oh,
Juliet,
Give
this
him a pencil.
13-year-old
No,
has
I
the
just
most
brought one.
amazing lines.
Mhm.
Oh boy.
Oh, what happened?
I don't have a new one.
Oh.
There we go.
Okay, swear not by the moon whose bounty is boundless as the sea. What sadness lengthens Romeo's hours? Who would have said that? What sadness lengthens Romeo's hours? Right at the beginning.
Oh.
I remember he's sad because he loves
Just,
that
yeah,
one girl, but she doesn't love him back.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah, but who said that? Who asked him?
Okay.
What's his name? It's
Who is really, in fact, charged with going and talking to Romeo to figure out what's wrong with him? Benvolio. Benvolio.
Benvolio, right.
You've got to know these. Benvolio. And so he asks, what sadness lengthens Romeo's hours? And what is the answer to that question?
Well, it was because he loves that one girl and she doesn't love him back. Was it Rosalind?
You're absolutely
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Eventually, we get that figured out. But what is his immediate answer to the question? Not having that, which having makes them short. He's not very forthcoming.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. And in what vow does he live dead that lives to tell it now? She is too wise, too fair, too wise, wisely too fair, to merit death by making me despair. She hath forsworn to love, and in that vow do I live dead that live to tell it now. That part is not in the Zeffirelli version, incidentally.
Romeo?
Absolutely. And he's talking about
Juliet.
No, not Juliet.
no. He's talking about Rosalind,
Oh.
his earlier love.
Oh.
Okay, who is exiled hence? And for that offense do we exile him hence?
Whoa. Romeo?
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, he's the only one who comes to mind. Okay, we have a whole lot of who said it's. I don't want to take time for these.
Good.
Can I leave them to you?
Sure.
And you're going to know them all and just write them down as we're doing something else or something.
Okay.
As we're doing something else.
Well, we can't do that, can we?
So do we just write them all down? Or something?
Okay, write them all down and post them somewhere. I just don't want to take the time for that. Does anybody have any questions on these?
I'm gonna
Ew.
study all those.
I'm
And
gonna watch the
Make sure I
Zeffirelli
know
version
them.
again with the questions in
yeah,
front of me.
yeah,
Yes.
it's very good.
Because I've seen the Zeffirelli
1968.
version and the other version that was on the site, but I didn't have the questions in front of me. That's why it was.
Yeah, most of these
on the
will
same
be
site?
reflected in the Zeffirelli
No,
version,
like-
not all of them,
Yeah.
because of course he cut things out. Okay, I'm going to go on to other things. Maybe we'll come back to this.
Okay.
Okay, but I do want to have a record of the fact that you have all studied it assiduously, even sedulously, and you know it in and out, every quote that I could possibly think of calling upon. All right, so here's our Romeo and Juliet page, and the Zeffirelli film is recommended, but there are so many others. There are 2 complete versions on our Romeo and Juliet page. One of them is a BBC version, and they're much more complete and much more faithful to the original, but maybe not quite as impressive. Okay, I have added to our assignment sheet a little chapter here that bears somewhat on the programming class, but it's a chapter that I'd like your opinion on, because I'd like to know whether you understand it or not. Dawson, I believe you've seen this one before.
Probably.
Gumballs and 3-sided dice. Okay, that's one of mine. Now, you all read De-Skilling the Orchestra, right?
Mm.
Let's skip that one and go straight over to
Didn't we cover that
the
one last
assignments
week?
that have been
We covered it last week, right?
I assigned it
Yeah.
last week. You hadn't read it yet, right? I read you the
I have.
very last paragraph of it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had.
Anyway, I would like to address that a little bit, partly just for the writing style, but also for the content, because it follows up nicely on the paper that you did the time before. Okay, let's go over here to okay, the deadly animals of Australia. This is fascinating, and I enjoyed reading it and
The
learning a few things about them.
the blue-ringed octopus. That's
You didn't say it.
Yeah, I didn't. I didn't
I-
mention that. That one slipped my mind, but I had to keep it short. There were a couple ones that I left out, such as the crocodile.
Yes,
But
not
that's everyone knows about that.
right, but it's not venomous, but it's odd.
Yeah.
It's interesting how many venomous things they have there.
Yes.
A venomous octopus?
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah, it's interesting.
my first evening in Australia, I was sitting down and having supper, and someone noted this 2-inch wide spider over on the bookcase, and it
Terrifying.
evoked a certain amount of concern. And then people went and looked at it and says, oh no, it's just a huntsman. So I said, well, does that mean it's not venomous?
Yes.
Oh, it's venomous. It's just not as venomous. Okay. So that's Australia.
That's
And
Australia.
I kept kidding them about things. I mean, you've got these venomous octopods, which is, by the way, is an acceptable plural of octopus.
What about octopodes?
I haven't heard of that one.
It's the
have.
correct plural of, because octo is Greek, and so people so it's octopodes.
I want to look that one up. I've certainly seen octopuses and octopods, but I hadn't seen octopodes. We will research that.
Octopodes.
But with venomous octopuses, you could make talk about venomous penguins and venomous emus and things. Everything's so terribly dangerous down there. Okay, so we've got Australia, a continent that possesses some of the most deadly animals known to man, period. What's the problem with that?
I must have not put a
Right.
period because the one's capitalized.
Right. Because the one's capitalized, and that makes this have to stand as a sentence on its own, and it's missing a verb, so it's a fragment. Okay, you could easily have attached it to the following sentence, and that would work. One may think such a continent that possesses the power to continuously threaten. What does SI stand for, and what do you remember?
Split infinitive.
Split infinitive, right. To continuously threaten, to boldly go, yes. One's life could be, can't surely be completely habited, yes. In fact, a large part of it isn't habited, really. The fact of the matter is that citizens of Australia have grown accustomed to this danger and literally live side by side with it. Yes, they do, sort of. I threw this in, of course, you ended up talking about funnel web. I'm not sure you got to the redback.
No.
Did you know that more people die from auto accidents as the result of funnel webs than from being bitten by the funnel web?
Wait, what?
They-
Auto accidents?
Yeah, they tend to get into the visor.
Oh.
And then somebody pulls a
Mhm,
visor
freaks
down, and
out.
funnel web drops down on them. Anyway, that's
I wonder
my
how it got
understanding.
there in the first place.
Yeah.
It's hard to know
Yeah,
exactly.
these things they crawl in your shoes in.
Yeah.
So if you leave your shoes, well, just dump your shoes out and check to see that there's nothing in there.
Yes, yes. I was a little confused when you talked about both territories of Australia. As I recall, there are 7, but I'm not absolutely sure of that.
I mean, I think the north and south one.
Okay, Northern Territory and Southern Territory. Okay, and we've got Western New South Wales, Victoria, and what's the last one?
Queensland.
Queensland. Thank you, and Tasmania. Okay. This arachnid. It's nice to have a word like that when you're tired of using the word spider and you've used it so many times. Bears fangs that measures, this arachnid fangs that measures, that's the mismatch. Yeah, you understand what's wrong with that, right?
This arachnid bears fangs that measures. Bears fangs that measure?
Bears fangs that measures. That was your original. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fangs that measure. Is,
Yeah, that's
right. 1 inch sounds awfully long for
Yep.
a spider. Yeah.
And then if you poke it, you could see venom just flows out of the fang in front of you.
Let's see. Anywhere is a single word. Okay. Very nicely done. And I threw in the blue-ringed octopus. And when you see blue-ringed octopus, it's amazing. They change color right in front of you. It's bright blue, and then they just subside. It's fascinating phenomenon. Nicely done. Now, one of the things I'd like to suggest is you may have noticed that I put a resource here into our main page. Okay. I think perhaps I need to refresh the page.
And if you're interested in, well, the blue-ringed octopus and how it changes color, there is an octopus that changes color, shape, and size drastically in a second. It's called the mimic octopus.
Wonderful. That sounds like something definitely worthy of a paper or perhaps even just an oral presentation. I've added this citation engine. This is for, it just makes it easy to put your endnotes together so that you can cite sources and comply with one of the three major formats. The APA, American Psychological Association, the MLA, Modern Language Association, Chicago. You just choose one of the three, and we should perhaps go in there and play with it a little bit. Feel free to do so. It's very simple. And the simplest of them all is the book, because all you have to do is choose book and give it the ISBN number, and it looks everything up for you and sticks it in there.
That's great.
And it'll handle web pages and everything else. So anyway, I wanted to talk about that a little bit because that's one of the things that one sort of has to do in higher education. Now, we could get on to the issue of whether that has really doomed higher education, because it's becoming less and less clear that original research is a valid direction to judge graduate students on, given that it's so easy to acquire material from other sources. And the word that comes to mind and has been used for this purpose, because I like words, is cyber pseudepigraphy, which means the false attribution. It's not plagiarism. Plagiarism is taking something without the permission of the person you're taking it from. But it's taking something with permission, but not citing the original source. In other words, ghostwriting.
Yeah.
And it's simply almost to be expected that given all of the forces involved in higher education, you're at a significant disadvantage if you're not taking advantage of illicit sources. And it's rather an unfortunate environment to have to function in, but that's what is forced upon people who have to publish in one way or another, in either in order to get their degree or in order to keep their positions. Anyway, let's play around with that a little bit. Let's look at this one here. This is another nice big work here. And I went through it. I'm sure you've all read these things, and I hope you're all reading each other's material.
Yeah.
And it improves in its quality as one goes along a little bit. And notice the number of points that I've corrected on it. But then I realized this is an example of something where we really should be putting in endnotes and so forth. And so I went to the citation engine and I ran around online to try to find what might one be citing as a resource. And I found a resource and I put a footnote in here using the citation engine that we used that I looked at before and that we can go ahead and play around with a little bit. So this is a web page, and you put I'm using here APA, the American Psychological Association standard, which you can just push a button on the citation engine and switch it to the others. And you put that down at the bottom of the page. That and the MLA are very similar. Chicago works with numbers. You put a number in the text and put the number down below. But I mean, it's not important for you to understand all the details
Mhm.
of the format here. You've got software that'll do that for you.
Nowadays, especially, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's insane.
And so this web page, let's see, the Wheeler web page, I just threw it in here, but you've drawn on it fairly heavily here. And one of the things that's so important that I've mentioned before is never cut and paste unless you're going to put quotes around it and cite it, because that's the way you get in trouble. If you cut and paste something, if taking somebody else's words is so easily verifiable and so easily searchable. And so we have to make sure to rework things.
Do you
Now,
do that with all of our papers?
what's that?
Do you do that with all of our papers?
No, not at all. It's just that if you are going to draw things from a source, don't use the original language. That's important. And you drew a little bit too heavily on this one source for this particular one here. And so I wanted to make it into a nice research paper, one that would pass muster and work nicely with its resources. And so rather than choosing one resource, the best way to go is choose at least 3. And draw from all 3, cite all 3, and if you do quote something, put quotes around it and indicate the source. But never use somebody else's words if you're not going to put quotes around it, because it makes it just too easy to find. And indeed, if you've drawn things from a source that's on a general subject like this, I shouldn't have been able to find the source, because you can only search words. You can't search ideas. There's no way to search ideas unless you put them in words. Also, the original article here is not all that well written. And so this emphasizes my second point. Don't ever use somebody else's words, but you can do better. And it really, in so many cases, I think behooves one to read through material that's covering the material you want to cover and simply rewrite it. Write it in your own words, improve upon the way it's being presented. So for example, here, let's see. We're talking here about who did glass blowing the first, before anybody else. And they talk about 1500 BC. And despite the fact that Pliny the Elder, well, actually Pliny in the original document was mentioned as having noted in that the Phoenicians had seen glass flowing out from under fire, and well, of course, that doesn't really show us anything, since we've demonstrated from other sources that it had already been discovered 1500 years previously. But here, this reference to Pliny, do a little bit of research. If you find a reference like that one, find out who he really was. And indeed, Pliny the Elder was his real name. And that's the name by which we should probably call him. So looking it up makes a little sense. Add something to the material that you find elsewhere, and you may have to search elsewhere to find it. Okay, little things here. History displays that in the era about the time of the birth of Christ, history shows, history demonstrates, but displays somehow just doesn't fit that one particularly well. And okay, the answer is not as important as the varied used that man has devised to utilize it. This is horribly lumpy writing. And I blame your source more than I blame you, but you should have caught it. and improved upon it. You see what I mean?
Wait, that's not.
Yeah, the multiple use of the word used for one thing. And the used that man has devised to utilize it, that's a typo. He meant uses, but used the wrong word there. And then there's a certain amount of lack of clarity there. Okay, and then this lavish in glazed tiles. Ancient temples are rich and lavish in glazed tiles. I found that usage peculiar, but lavishly decorated in glazed tiles.
The ly works better.
Yes, it does. It does. And forming of glasses on the outside of rounded clay forms. I think glazes is what we're talking about there. Activations of tunes. Yeah, you could leave out the to be. It really appears no secret, but I think the to be improves the clarity there. Ingenuity and artistry. Okay. Anyway, any questions on this one? There are awkward little things in it, but again, those were awkward in the original. Their successes, however, were doomed. Their continued success was doomed. I felt I'd make it just really clear. Any questions? Okay, what I'd like to suggest here is let's make this into a real research paper by adding the footnotes, and this would be straightforward to do using that citation engine that I put into the classroom there, and just adding 2 more sources. Now, when it comes to what do you quote, what do you cite, and what do you need to cite, if you're drawing from material that is generally known and found in any encyclopedia, there's no need to cite sources there, really. This is commonly known. If we come across a case where Pliny the Elder is disagreeing with some contention that it had appeared earlier, there it might be useful to indicate that the source of that one, because there is a contradiction involved. But if you can manage to find something that you can cite from multiple sources, at least 3 is a good idea. And then at the bottom of the page, you sort them by last name of the author. And in the text itself, refer to those references by simply the author's name and the date.
Where's that program again, by the way? The program?
There are actually so many of them out there online. This one, this citation engine, let me go ahead and open that one up.
Yeah.
Citefast.com is the one. I gave you just a little example here. I chose book, and I stuck in the ISBN number and BN number. Well, the only book that the first book I could reach from where I was sitting at the time. And this would be entered into the text when you make the reference. You put in the page number on when it's a book. And then at the bottom of the page, you would put in this here, again, sorted by the last name. This particular book, How Not to Write a Novel, was sitting there because my daughter, who took this class some time ago and on a few occasions taught it, then went on to get a degree in English, has published 3 novels and is working on a bunch more. And when I shared my novel with her, she came back with this and gave me a copy of How Not to Write a Novel. So, anyway, that was what was sitting around.
That's funny.
Okay. Let's see. What else have we got here? There, we've done that. Okay, Deskilling the Orchestra. This was an assignment for you to read. And I'm hoping that you have some comment on the style, on the content, on the contention. And indeed, this is an unusual contention. This is not something you're going to find in encyclopedias. What specifically is the thesis of this paper?
I don't know if there is a thesis. I think it's more just a kind of like a research paper, if you will.
Well, I understand.
That's how I took it, at least, but still very well written. And
that's the way you are looking at it. And indeed, it's not a research paper in the sense that I don't cite any sources. There are no sources that need be cited here, really, because everything that's contended is not in question. Specifically, what is the thesis, though? Does anybody else have a conclusion to draw from this thing? Okay, well, this is one of the important things to understand. Also, you'll notice it doesn't start with this is what this paper is going to be about, and doesn't end with this is what the paper was about. I mean, if you look at the essays of some of the great essayists, and I'm awfully tempted to give you a bunch of those to look at, you will find that so many of them don't follow that rule. But in this case, it lays the groundwork by saying so many different arts from in different areas have evolved as a result of technology, evolved immensely. For example, the use of the abacus, for example. That this was something that was a real skill, and the abacus experts can do a tremendous amount with it. But because of the new technology, the calculator, anybody with a little bit of training can be just about as good as an expert with an abacus. And it doesn't take much training. It's called de-skilling. And it's a standard term used in modern business purposes. For example, a cash register person with the old-fashioned cash registers, and they had to push the button. You've never seen that, but that's the way it used to be. And they had to really practice for a long time and get very expert at that. We don't need that anymore. It just goes through a scanner. Bleep, bleep, bleep. You don't have to have somebody punching in things in. It de-skills the operation. There was mention here to Colonial Williamsburg. Does anybody know what that is?
Yeah.
What is it?
It's sort of like a life history or reenactment kind of thing at Williamsburg.
Right. Reenactment of earlier periods, and especially earlier period crafts. For example, furniture making, carpentry. And all of this, of course, was done with hand tools, and that these elaborate planes and gouges and so forth. And it's a fascinating study. But the fact is, that's not the way furniture is made anymore. It's made with computer-guided tools and all of the moldings, for example. Do we see any? Oops. The moldings. I don't see any really the elaborate material along the edges of pieces of furniture. Used to be done by the fancy planes and so forth. Now it's done with a router, and you just change the router bit. So these things have evolved, and we're not doing them the old way anymore, understandably, perhaps. What about the orchestra? The orchestra hasn't evolved.
Yeah. It still takes practice, pretty much, just
practice and a lot of
repetition.
Right, enormous amounts of practice go into it. A great deal of expertise is required, and there's still enough people apparently interested in watching live performances to keep it going. But what if you could make an instrument? And this instrument, I'm not sure what it would even look like, but this instrument, first of all, you don't need to worry about what the notes are. In classical music, your notes are predefined for you. They're written on the page. You plug them into the instrument. Let it worry about what the notes are, and let the player handle all of the other intangibles, the volume level, the tempi, how fast it's
Yeah,
going.
that's what I was thinking. They have some programs that do that actually.
There's no question they do. It's easily enough done.
Mhm.
But then, of course, you could even go into areas where the violinist with the bow on the string has a certain amount of leeway to what she can do with it. But you could have ultimate leeway with what you can do with the waveform and the envelope and how that sound is produced. And you could do absolutely anything with it. Then you got to figure out, okay, what's my interface here? Is it going to be something I do with my hands, something I do with my eyes, or even you could plug it in and use alpha waves or something like
Oh,
that?
that'd be crazy.
Theoretically, you'd be able to do that sort of thing. We don't see that in an orchestra yet, but it's my contention that the orchestra is the last bastion of anachronism, in that it hasn't caught up. We're still playing on instruments which were really indistinguishable from instruments that were used in the time of Mozart and Beethoven.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was my contention. I was hoping that you would understand the arguments there. And does anybody have any question about the language?
Not something you
I
see.
don't find
usually,
any
but
grammar mistakes.
yeah. I actually read it more than a few times and I couldn't really find anything.
Good for you. I'm glad you read it a few times. I would be a little surprised if you did find something, but I certainly appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, here's
I
one
tell you, believe it.
little point here. As any music student will have learned, often through many hours of onerous practice, the hands, mind, and reflexes, notice the triplet there, of the musician must be made to conform to and engage with the properties and peculiarities of instruments that were state of the art long before sailing vessels were supplanted by steamships and muzzle-loaded muskets surrendered their dominance to more efficient means of slaughtering the proletariat in fulfillment of the rapacious goals of aristocracy. Okay, you see, this is one sentence, notice, but you can weave so much meaning into a single sentence
It's
there
very true.
and refer to so many different things at the same time. Anyway, I just wanted to play around with that a little bit. Okay. Here we have, I really want to look a little bit at Romeo and Juliet. And this one here, this gumballs and three-sided dice, is a chapter. It's actually a mathematics lesson. It's not a textbook. This is from a novel, but it's a mathematical lesson in a novel. And I want to see how well you folks understand it and whether it actually makes sense to you, if you don't mind taking a look at that. Okay. Is there anything else we need to cover rather than jumping straight into the works, the text of Romeo and Juliet?
I don't think so. You guys have anything?
We're good.
Sounds like no.
Let's do that then.
The time code text.
Now, let's just look at this page itself. Of course, here are some excerpts from the Zeffirelli version, which are on YouTube. You folks have had a chance to see it. This is a very good version. It covers the material very nicely. There, it comes in 2 parts. And then this is another version. I had a little trouble with this one.
I didn't watch
did anybody
that.
watch that one?
No.
No.
Okay, nobody got that far. What I have trouble with is probably something that doesn't bother a lot of people, but when you listen to the speech art of a number of different people who are supposedly brought up in the same town, and yet their accents place them in different continents, I have trouble with that. It's just as though you saw people of totally different races that don't make any sense on the stage at the same time, or species or something, because it's so obviously the case that they would not have grown up in the same world. Okay, let's go over here to our online text. Actually, let's just go to it rather. Okay, you have all seen Gutenberg, right? Project Gutenberg, absolutely wonderful resource of the public domain material in text form. And then I think that LibriVox is also extremely important. LibriVox is the audiobook equivalent to the Project Gutenberg. And so please go ahead and explore the resources that are available there. Now, there are a lot of different Shakespeare resources online, of course, vast numbers. And some of them have translation next to the original text, and some of them have commentary on the vocabulary, and indeed we may have to refer to some of those. But let's see. We have at the beginning this, the chorus speaks this and sort of gives away the plot, doesn't it? This is definitely the ultimate spoiler at the very, very beginning here. You've all seen the Zeffirelli version. Who reads this in the Zeffirelli version? Who says this? Anybody know? Sir Laurence Olivier. He's not credited. He's not mentioned anywhere in the film. But he happened to be in Italy when they were making it, and he volunteered, and he came in and did the chorus. He also did the voice of Montague, rather than the Italian actor who was actually pictured. So, which is sort of an interesting and odd bit of trivia, that this was, in fact, presented by one of the 4 knights of the British theatre. You probably heard of the 4 knights. There was Laurence Olivier, Sir John Gielgud, Ralph Richardson, and Alec Guinness. Alec Guinness, you know who he was, right? Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Anyway, they're referred to as the 4 knights, and a different one of the knights does the chorus on the other video we did, and that's Gielgud. Gielgud is the chorus on the other video I gave. Okay, so don't with their death bury their parents' strife. So we know what's going to happen here. Now, and hit here we have what's happening here is Benvolio is a young man. He's trying to help out his kinsman Romeo.
Cheer him up.
Cheer him up. Also trying to get his mind off of Rosalind, sort of stuck on this lady who is apparently intending to go into a convent, and which was common at the time, and trying to get him to open his eyes and look at other beauties. And this was cut from the Zeffirelli film altogether, but there is a scene in which Capulet puts together this list of invitees to his party and gives it to a servant to go and deliver the invitations. And the servant can't read. And so the servant is out there with this list of people, and he's looking around, what am I going to do with this? And so he finds somebody who can read. Who can read? The people in the noble houses. They are well educated. And indeed, we know that they're well educated from the language, everything about them, and even the mention of education with Friar Lawrence, where Friar Lawrence has clearly been tutoring young Romeo in various ways. So he ends up asking Romeo, doesn't know who he is, doesn't know he's a Montague, and this is a Capulet party. And so Romeo reads the list to him. Although this young man who doesn't know how to read apparently has pretty good memory, so he remembers the list read to him and then goes off and bites them. But in the process, Romeo discovers that Rosalind is invited to this party. And Benvolio says, yeah, come on, there are a lot of other girls there too. Let's compare. And Romeo says, well, I'm going to go just to see how Rosalind outshines them. That was not in the Zeffirelli version at all. And then they're getting together and they're going to go to this party, and we get an introduction to this wonderful character, Mercutio. Now, Mercutio is played in various different ways by so many different people. It's really a fascinating role. He is a confidant of Romeo. They consort together. Indeed, they are accused of consorting together by Tybalt. And Mercutio is a bit of an odd bird. He sort of babbles on about weird things like the Queen Mab speech. And he's talking about Queen Mab. Queen Mab is a part of the sort of the ancient Anglo-Saxon pantheon of fairies and so forth. Queen Mab is the fairies' midwife. And none of this makes any particular sense or has any bearing on anything else. But Romeo brings him back to himself and says, you're talking about nothing. Just stop it. Yes, I'm talking about nothing. And then let's go. We're going to be too late. So they go off to the party. But when they go off to the party, this is one of the most important things in the entire play. Romeo says as they as they depart, Benvolio says, "This wind you talk of blows us from ourselves." He was talking about the dew dropping south and the wind from the north. It's part of the Queen Mab speech here. Puffs away from thence, turning his face to the dew dropping south. And Benvolio says, "This wind you talk of blows us from ourselves. Supper is done and we shall come too late." So they want to go to the party. There's going to be dancing at the party. And so Romeo says, "I fear too early, for my mind misgives some consequence yet hanging in the stars, shall bitterly begin his fearful date with this night's revels, and expire the term of a despised life, closed in my breast by some vile forfeit of untimely death. But he that hath the steerage of my course, direct my sail on, lusty gentleman." What has he just said? He knows that something's going to start tonight, and it's going to end with his death. Not only end with his death, but end with his death on his terms. Some vile forfeit of untimely death, of a despised life. He's going to take his own life. It's all there. We know it's going to happen. It's terribly Greek. You've got this portent, and then it comes true. I mean, that's basically the fundamental assumption in all of the Greek tragedies. We've got a portent, and regardless of what happens, it ends up coming true. And so, but he goes anyway. He knows that this is the case. He feels it's the case, and on he goes. And then in hall in the Capulet's house, we've got all kinds of interesting things happening. Capulet, a rather jovial old character. At one point, he's meeting everyone, and everybody's dancing. And then let's see. We have this wonderful initial impact of Juliet when Romeo sees her. And he asks, "What lady is that which doth enrich the hand of yonder knight?" He wants to know who she is. Servant hasn't any idea. It's rather odd that the servant wouldn't have any idea. After all, if this is a servant in the Capulet's house, he would certainly know the Capulet's daughter. But we don't know. Maybe they were borrowing servants or something. Or indeed, people would have come with their servants. Okay, so Romeo suddenly, this changes his outlook altogether. "Oh, she doth teach the torches to burn bright. It seems she hangs upon the cheek of night. Like a little jewel in Ethiopia, beauty too rich for use for earth to do it dear." Now, in speaking there, he's probably wearing a mask, but young Tybalt knows young Romeo by his voice. So Tybalt says, "This by his voice should be a Montague. Fetch me my rapier, boy." Boy, they go straight to it. It's not a question of going up and pushing him or something. "Go and get me my sword." Okay, "Come hither covered with an antique face to fleer and scorn at our solemnity." Solemnity is interesting. We think of something solemn as being ponderous and heavy, and but no, solemnity is in fact our rejoicing at the time. A lot of words change their meaning. So he's going to come and make fun of our rejoicing. Now by the stock and honor of my kin, to strike him dead, I hold it not a sin. So he's about to kill young Romeo, or intends to. But Capulet interferes. Well, why would Capulet want to interfere? What did the prince say? On pain of death. If you're, I can't remember the exact words. If your battle breaks the quiet of our streets on pain of death. So Capulet is bound to this, and in fact he mentions it earlier. And he looks over and says, "Young Romeo, is it? Well, Capulet's not that horrible a character when you think about it. 'Tis he, the villain Romeo. Content thee, gentle coz, let him alone. He bears him like a portly gentleman. And to say truth, Verona brags of him to be a virtuous and well-governed youth. I would not, for the wealth of all the town here in my house, do him disparagement. Therefore be patient, take no note of him." He's nice, but he's pretty stupid, right? He knows Tybalt's not going to stop at that. He's going to keep it and bring it to the city streets. And indeed, that's not what Capulet wants to take place. He has been warned. So he ignores that, but Tybalt indeed intends to go, and Capulet gets angry. "He shall be endured." "But uncle, 'tis a shame. Go to, you're a saucy boy." And we have a little more of this, and then eventually, okay, "You are a princox." That's where that line comes from. It's interesting because Zeffirelli swapped things around a little bit, and it's Lady Capulet who calls him a princox there. It's actually Capulet's line. He moves it around. Okay, and he's going to have patience and get Romeo some other time. "Now seeming sweet, convert to bitterest gall." That was another one of the lines I gave you. Okay, now Romeo and Juliet together. An incredible scene. Watch it again and look at the lines and understand what's going on with this. Is it possible with fewer than 100 words to cause someone to fall in love? Well, we've already seen it happen in Twelfth Night, didn't we? And so the kiss, have not saints' lips and holy palmers too, lips that they must use in prayer. Well, then, dear saint, let lips do what hands do, they pray. Okay, very clever stuff. And then he kisses her. Thus from my lips by thine my sin is purged. And Juliet says, then have my lips the sin that they have took. Sin from my lips, oh trespass sweetly urged. Here's the line I wanted you to remember. Give me my sin again. You kiss by the book. This is an interesting reference. Constant reference to anything that's done well or done perfectly is done by the book, at least in Romeo and Juliet. And there are a number of references to that. Okay, and then Romeo wants to find out, who is she? He still doesn't know who she is. And whom does he ask? He asks Juliet's nurse. It's interesting that someone who still has a nurse is considered nubile and ready for marriage.
Yeah.
It's not
Ironic.
But she's 13.
Yeah.
One wonders also about the nurse and the nurse's take on what's going on. Well, the nurse initially is very supportive. Indeed, she runs errands to Romeo and arranges things and so forth.
Okay.
That later on, however, she turns and said, no, Romeo's a discount to him, and go and marry Paris. But what is this nurse looking forward to? She has, for the past 13 years, been responsible for Juliet. Juliet's going to go off and get married. What happens to the nurse?
That's not her responsibility anymore.
No, it's not her responsibility anymore. But what happens to her? I mean, what was her role in life?
New job.
She's regarded as fairly important in the household. After all, this nurse is after all a servant, but she has her own servant. The nurse has a servant, Peter, right? So she's important in the household. Okay, so Benvolio says, let's take off. First of all, Romeo has just discovered who Juliet is. And the nurse, who always goes on at length about everything she talks about, I nursed her daughter that you talked with all. And at the end here, is anybody look that up? He that can lay hold of her shall have the chinks. She is the heir to Juliet, to Capulet's fortune. And of course, that's probably one of the major factors in Paris's mind when he is trying to woo her as well. But that's not of any significance to Romeo. He is indeed the heir to Romeo's, the Montague's fortune. Oh dear account, my life is my foe's debt. Yes, in other words, he is so fallen in love, but suddenly realizes the nature of the problem there. Away be gone. And we have this exit taking place here. And then Juliet finds out. She's smarter, though. She doesn't go straight ahead and ask, who's he? No, she asks, who's he? Who's he? Who's he? She asks a bunch of them there. Okay, and then who's going out of the door? I think that's one of them, Petruchio. Petruchio also, of course, is the name of the main character in the Taming of the Shrew, which is a fascinating play, too, in a rather different way. And then he follows there, who would not dance? Well, of course, Zeffirelli decided to have Romeo out there on the dance floor, so he had to cut that bit out. But Juliet indeed asks, and nurse says, I know not. Go ask his name. Whom does the nurse ask? It's not here in the text. It doesn't say who she asks. Whom does she ask? Who would know? in the Zeffirelli version. She asks Tybalt. Tybalt's the only one who does know, really. Yes, and he gets the answer. And Tybalt tells her the answer in Zeffirelli's version. It's not here in the text. Okay. And then we have Juliet coming up with this amazing line. My only love sprung from my only hate, too early seen unknown, and known too late. Prodigious birth of love it is to me that I must love a loathed enemy. And the nurse hears her say this. How does she get away with that? Juliet is pretty sharp. What's this? What's this? A rhyme I learned even now of when I danced with him. Okay, so she's just pretending to be reciting her rhyme. Okay, so we get a chorus coming in here, which is not in the Zeffirelli version at all, and sort of lays down the situation. Okay, they're in love with each other, and how is Romeo going to see her? And she has even less access to him. Okay, and then here we have the Capulet's garden and the balcony scene. Are we up for doing the balcony scene, or do we need to cover anything else in there?
Balcony scene, I guess.
Okay. Romeo is climbing walls and getting into the garden somehow or other. The rest of his company, Benvolio and Mercutio and a bunch of others, are trying to find out where Romeo is. And he's disappeared. He ran this way and leaped this orchard wall. Call, good Mercutio. And so Mercutio tries to conjure him. Romeo, humor's madman, passion, lover, appear thou in the likeness of a sigh. It's interesting stuff, but he hasn't any word, any concept of what's going on in Romeo's head. And indeed, none of this made its way into the Zeffirelli version, or very little of it. And in some of it is quite bawdy, and the interaction between Mercutio and Romeo is in fact becomes very salacious in part. Okay. If he hear thee, thou wilt anger him. This cannot anger him. 'Twould anger him to raise a spirit in his mistress's circle. So he is conjuring Romeo with the name Rosalind. But of course, as